Hey there, good afternoon. It is 4:54, October 8th, Wednesday afternoon. I had all the intentions of going out today and picking up groceries, but I yesterday I had allergies and I have them today. I noticed that the dust is just a little bit too high and I just could not deal with it. So I decided to stay in today. And mind you, I'm extremely bored because wanted to get some sunlight, but I can only do what I can do. So right now, I'm just kind of hanging out in my room and thinking about. I'm thumbing through some stuff in my drawer, trying to figure out. Okay, do I want to start an art project? And some people think, well, aren't you going to be looking for work? I've decided to limit my time to look for work just one day a week. Okay, and the reason why is because, I need to take care of my mental well-being. And I know that I've dealt with a lot of trauma and a lot of nonsense here in the community, and I don't really think it makes any difference, no matter how much effort I put into it. What's ever going to happen, whatever the time frame is going to happen. And that's not me trying to have a crappy attitude. It's just I need to take care of my mental well-being, and in a world where people do not have any common sense, so it's for my best good. So anyway, I was thinking about as I was sitting down earlier, I was sorting through some stuff, and I was kind of like listening to a video in the background, and it was bringing up these questions about what we might regret in our lives. Okay, I honestly can tell you that I do not regret anything that I had control over. Now, when it comes to what I do regret, everything I regret has everything to do with other people. Okay, everything in my life. Like if I would have known how corrupt at that time that these people were, if I could have had made use of some sort of system to where I could have been emancipated, I would have moved away from the Gordon family. I would have done everything I could to put this protection over me. Now, what I guess really when I was thinking about it, what can I say that I regret in my life? Okay, maybe I kind of regret being friends with Amanda. The reason why is because even though I cared about Amanda, I know that she was a very backbiting person. How could she not be if she was in the city of Lancaster? Lancaster was crawling with just absolute demonic people. Now, maybe she could have had good intentions, but in that group and being a very weak-minded person, I doubt she could have been a very, a good-hearted person. My connection with Amanda led me into the, setting up with Jehovah's Witnesses, led me to get to know who Bruce was. If I was never involved with the Jehovah's Witnesses, I would have, this would have never happened. Bruce's mother would have never been involved or whatever. That still would not have stopped, okay, my harassment, because I know the LDS church was involved in my harassment. There was a lot, this whole bloodline targeting thing would have, I would have still experienced some problems, okay, but maybe I would not have experienced the ridiculous nonsense, relating to what the Collins family was involved in. I would say throughout my life, my biggest regret was other people. My biggest regret was other people, and I do understand there's a lot of people who used to know me who are talking about the contrast of who I was when I was younger as to who I am today. Okay, I will tell you that who I was back then, I was always this person. I was just waiting for a chance to be who I am, because I could not find that in this group of people. Like every time I would do something, there was some sort of comment. Just like, the fact that these people had it in their mind to sit here and downgrade me for everything. Okay. So my particular choice of music to me seems like a personal choice, but this is something that just gave them gossip, fuel for the fire, and everything else. Okay. So obviously I was somebody who needed to get away from the toxic environment so that I could really be who I was. You know what I mean? I had mentioned, growing up, I would stutter. And still, sometimes I do stutter. I will stutter, number one, when I lose interest, a lot of times, okay? I noticed that when I was in Lancaster, I was around people that never let me be who I was, okay? So, and then I would feel kind of like, like I didn't have room to talk, or I could not express myself the way that I wanted to. So then I would have these problems with, stuttering, stammering. I felt like I wasn't really comfortable where I wanted to be. I felt like, I was in an environment that I shouldn't be in. that kind of stuff. Okay. I wanted to leave every single last person that I knew in the Lancaster area alone, and I wanted my own life. So it bothered me that these people would come in and follow me, right? And then demand that I listen to them, that I'm supposed to bow down and listen to them. Now, I understand now because it's becoming very clear to me that these campaigns didn't just start on their own. I understand that, I'm a clone, right? And that right there, because of the bloodline targeting, because of very corrupt officials at that time when I was born, and along with church people and just bloodthirsty sickos. I mean, the people who were behind my creation were very sick people, okay? But then we had the church that was going along with it, okay? So this is one of the reasons why I am just, I've already had it in my mind that I've done with the church, okay? But it's just, you cannot be associated with something that unclean and expect to be righteous. You just cannot, okay? So here we have this, okay? So now I was thinking, what, why do what do I value in my life? I value who I am. I value my value system, okay? That's what I care about. In life, this is what you're supposed to do. I'm supposed to gravitate towards my goals, okay? And unfortunately, I think a lot of people think, okay, well, where does your career fit into this, or your jobs, your, whatever. Obviously, this is an 8-hour thing that you have to devote yourself to in order to bring money. And unfortunately, I've had people who should have never been involved in my life, coming into my life, trying to create problems in demanding that I, explain myself, or put me through some unnecessary drama. Okay, and I know, based on like intuitive messages, readings, not just my readings, but things I've heard on YouTube, something about Bruce, and I do believe that Bruce made up some sort of narrative. Him with Sarah made up some sort of narrative, and something about one thing is something about there was never any custody, any legal custody of my son to the Collins family. There was never anything like that. The message I'm getting right now, that's coming through my mind, is no one had any right to divert my career goals. Originally, I was going to be a CPA. That was my thing. Okay. I don't. It blows me away because, like I said, when we go back to the time period of Murray Family Farms, I understand that there was some sort of weird orchestration, but at that time, I was married to Joel, right? So I had no idea that Bruce was even in my life. They were able to sit here and spin these sort of ridiculous narratives. Sarah was able to, get a lot of people on her side. She worked at a place called, I keep thinking, Bruce told me it was called a place called Camping World. That's where it was, Camping World. Or did my son tell me that, or was it Bruce? Okay, I think it was probably my son. Okay, and then that's all I really know about Sarah. Okay, but I believe that Sarah had created, along with Terry, had a lot of people looking at my Facebook page and then acting as if I needed to demand why I'm living my life the way that I'm living. I don't owe them any explanation whatsoever. I'm not even married. So I know they took an interest in my father's apparition, right? And it's like, to me, it should have been very clear that I wanted nothing to do with these people. Okay, so then they decided to make decisions about my career, and these people had absolutely no right. Which I've already discussed this at the time. Okay, but I know that there's people from, the Antelope Valley who are saying things like, well, Maria was so this back then, and Maria was so this back. And I've explained this. I've explained it before. It's like, the fact is that I felt very limited in my environment. I wanted to move to another environment, and I wanted my life to be where I needed it to be. Okay, I did not need to, if I felt like being silly, I did not want people thinking, oh, she's silly, therefore she can't be intelligent, because that's not true. Okay, I've always wanted to find people, and I knew I was going to be difficult to find, okay? But one thing I knew is that I knew that I could not be around people who did not understand me, okay? So if my behavior as who I am now strikes you like, oh, I can't believe it. Yes, I have always been this person. I was not able to fully express myself, because when I would do things, or if I would talk about something, I would get shut down immediately. Okay, who do you think you are? Oh, you think you're white. Blah 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 blah. Anything you. So I got shut down a lot. You refused to see. You refused to see who I was. Okay, and a lot of it had a lot to do with the brainwashing, the church indoctrination, and your comfort level. Okay. And then all of that, plays a role into everything that happened today. So now I'm thinking, okay, uh, I was thinking about certain people who I know were involved. And this is not me trying to call people out, right? But I know that, throughout the years, people come into your life and they want to get close to you. I know I hung out with a girl when I was in high school. Her name was Teresa. I know Teresa was a person who lured me into Facebook. It was all her idea. I didn't even hear about Facebook. So I understand that she played an integral role in it. Okay. And I also know that I get this intuitive message, something about her trying to prove me wrong, trying to debate whether or not I really was who I was, and blah, 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 blah. Yes, of course I was. I think she was another one who had an issue with me liking my own kind of music. The problem with it is that Teresa was somebody who wanted to fit in with white people. That's what it was. Okay, so if Teresa likes white music, so it's okay for a Filipino person to like white music, but not a black person. See, this is the kind of stuff why I always look at most other races as bullshitters and willing to bend over backwards to eat the shit out of the white person's asshole, and that's exactly what Teresa was like. Okay, she would do that kind of stuff. As when I was younger, I used to look at white people like, okay, I know my dad used to talk down on white people a lot. That's all he did. Like he knew he had to work with them. So I would say, oh, that's not true. White people aren't evil. They're not this. They're not that. Blah 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 blah. But I found out. See, when I was dating Bruce, I kept thinking that's not true. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. I got to take people on an individual basis. Okay, I did my best. Okay, and so when I look at this whole issue, this whole racial issue, I can't tell you how good I feel. I feel like shing, sparkle, sparkle, because I proved something very important. Okay, I have always, okay, given people the benefit of doubt. I have always made sure that I never, criticized any group of people. I always gave them a fair chance. Today, I can say I gave these people a fair chance, and they've proven to me that something is wrong with them mentally. Okay, like I said, whether it's biological or it's external, I do not know. Okay, I personally have my own personal feelings, but we shall see how things play out in time. Okay, one thing's for sure, I understand that I have standards and about who I choose to be around. Okay, and I'm very disgusted by the people that I've used to know. I do get this intuitive message, something about my Swan Song Manifesto. That name is becoming very well known, which is good. And people think that I should be more enthusiastic about my projects. Well, I've dealt with this particular group who involved Teresa, who involved Terry Collins, and all these other people. This sick little cult group, okay, all from different denominations, all wanting to attack me, right? So, and then they spread their social cancer and all this other stuff, which is one of the reasons why I decided to cancel the moral reset, right? Because I don't feel as though somebody who is sincerely interested in improving the education system should be, they should be welcomed with open arms when it comes to, providing this information to the state. But see, I hate to think of this, but I feel as though state officials perhaps may have been, blindsided, or people who have, got sucked up into the Christian, what do you call it, indoctrination program, okay, which is obviously wrong. So you know what? I'm going back to my original plan. I choose to live my life the way that I live my life, and let me be around heathens if I have to. I will always state my case about my boundaries. You know what I mean? I don't want to have anything to do with that kind of lifestyle. You know what I mean? And I'm angry that these people took different desperate measures to try to force that onto me. You know what I mean? I have lost respect for so many people. It is not even funny. Like, I have lost respect for so many people just because they have demonstrated to me that they have this lack of education, regardless of what school they went to. They blindly follow the herd. You know what I mean? When it comes to Christianity, when I was younger, I disliked Christianity. I outright hate Christianity. I recognize it for the being the main responsible culprit for the mental illness in society. I truly do. Okay, this whole idea about being the infiltration of what they do. Okay, and them infiltrating into your lives, dictating who you marry, playing these little social games. You are nothing more than a piece of a chess piece on a board. Them matching you up with people and all this other crazy stuff. Okay, they are the main contributors of the psychological problems in society, and I knew this for the longest time. This is one of the reasons why I was like, I will not adapt to that nonsense. Okay, and now we've got this group of people who are not supposed to have anything to do with each other. I mean, all these denominations were originally meant to be distinct for a reason. They were supposed to be, oh, okay, well, we are taking our Bible study seriously, so therefore this is what we've drawn the conclusion of. This is how we're supposed to move. This is how we're supposed to see things. Okay, but like I said, I have seen the hypocrisy in so many Christian denominations. Okay, and so this is the reason why. Okay, it has never been. I know this town gossiped about me like, oh, she just wants to be disobedient. I'm not disobedient to anyone. I'm not required to attend church. I don't have to have any respect for the church. I don't respect the church. The church is evil. Period. Now, right now, I know that I've talked about, introducing the New World Order. The New World Order, when I talk about that, it's basically, acknowledging the fact that we have rules, guidelines that are not cumbersome. Okay. I am not under any responsibility to adhere to what the church says. Okay. And I'm surprised that people actually fell for that. I am so surprised that people fell for that. Okay, so what this tells me, obviously, that we have a problem in the education system. I was interested in, making my contributions. But see, this group of people didn't want me to make any contributions. See, I deal with people, the people that I went to school with are extremely jealous of me. Extremely. Okay, they have only seen me when they were bullying me in the school system. So now I finally wanted to get away from them. So then they sit there and they create problems for me now. Okay, there is no reason why I should not be able to contribute to the education system. I'll mind you, at this point, I have no interest in doing so. Okay, my interests right now are on other studies that have nothing to do with assisting mankind whatsoever. You know why? Because I honestly do feel as though the kind of judgment that have fallen upon people, they have absolutely deserved it. Okay, these people are nothing but wicked. Period. So anyway, the other message I'm getting is something about certain spiritual places would be ideal to add to my newsletter list. Okay, that's if I do end up doing that, like for example, making a video about cod stalking or something and sending it to churches and stuff. That's as far as the communication goes. I do not want anybody coming on my door acting like, oh, do we want to come to my church? The answer is no. Okay, no. Okay, I don't need your spiritual guidance. Okay, this is what I'm an angel. I don't need you. And see, this is what really pisses me off when I think about it. It's like the reason why I was always self driven when it came to my studies is because I don't need that. If anything, and I think this is one of the things that the churches really feared. They feared that I would be interested in starting my own religion, which I would not do. Okay, but see, they've always acted like I would. I personally, a lot of people think, well, why shouldn't you start your own religion? I'm the one who's more knowledgeable. They're stealing my stuff, right? You're the one who's stealing from me, right? Throughout all my lives or whatever. But no, I've never, had an interest in that. I just believe in living it, right? But I do had an interest in writing spiritual material. Like I know I had what do you call it? The what do you call it? Patreon, the Ko-fi, which these people ended up stealing from me. I cannot tell you how disgusting the church is. The intuitive message I'm getting is that I will be with my Father in heaven for the rest of after I pass on, okay? And I'm very angry right now because it's like, okay, uh, just the brainwashing of the people, okay? So I know that people had read my story or my little article about the future of humanity, and I know that people must be talking about it. I guess it gets people thinking. You know what I mean? How does the future of cloning look like? If we're talking about improving the right the white race, man, it's a tongue twister. Yeah, that really does need to be monitored. You know what I mean? Whatever. You know what I mean? Um, Apparently, people think that I am a great role model and a good leader. And see, I never really thought of myself that way. I just knew that what was going on around me was a load of garbage. I'd like to say something really quick to Mayor Parris in Lancaster, and I do say this with the utmost respect, and I don't want to create any waves, but I do remember mentioning your name several times. Okay, you are an employment lawyer of all professions. Okay, of all professions. I don't know exactly what blindsided you. Was it the fact that you just wanted to be superior, or was it the fact that you got caught up in the Christian frenzy? I do remember back in 2000. I think it was 2007. It might have been because I moved back in with my mom in 2007 or something like that, right? And I remember telling my sister that I wanted to go to a particular store. to get some incense, okay? Because I burn incense in my house. And she said, oh, well, Mary Parris was trying to discourage all of those sort of things in the city of Lancaster because everybody's supposed to be Christian. And when I heard this, I kept thinking, that's illegal. That's wrong. You're not supposed to do that. You know what I mean? But I kept thinking, you know what? I'm just here. You know what I mean? I'm just here living in Lancaster just for a short period of time. I was just like, okay, whatever, whatever. But then I realized that these people were involved in my life. Okay, I always knew that Mayor Parris was indeed an employment lawyer, which concerned me. Okay, obviously you should know that religion does not belong in that. Okay, so the message that's coming through my mind is yes, Mayor Parris is a white man, and he's very much aware of the cloning process. I do believe you probably knew who Jim Muma was, correct? And I certainly know that you know who my brother is. My brother Rashawn used to talk very highly of you. Okay, my brother tried very hard to sit here and win all of you guys' esteem. Meanwhile, I thought he was just a flunky and somebody who didn't deserve any respect. You know why? Because he would bend over backwards and trying to please people, knowing good and well that he was sitting here putting my life in jeopardy. Okay, he would do anything to sit here and be in, like, good graces with people who are actually very much mind controlled. Okay, so I don't want to sit here and call you evil, Mayor Parris, okay? But you do have a social responsibility. So know that you know, okay? You know that this is not acceptable, okay? And I'm absolutely, I can't say I'm surprised, but I understand what religion does to people. Now we have Karen Goh here in this community. Karen Goh is another people pleaser, another Asian people pleaser. Something, I find, very predictable among other races when they sit there and bend over backwards and they're like, oh, I just want to, I'm sorry at this point, and I'm not trying to be offensive to white people at all, okay? But they have really overstepped their boundaries. And when I really think about it, it's like I feel as though if you can't see for yourself, Karen Goh, what the truth really is, you got a problem. I don't have any respect for you. Okay, the intuitive message I'm getting right now is that, yes, I have cracked certain Bible codes, and all the cult religions know that I'm right. They all know it. I've been interested in the biblical study since I was a kid. This is one of the reasons why I accepted the Bible study with Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, that did not mean that I was limiting my Bible interpretations to what the Watchtower and Tract Society produced. They produced a Bible called, I believe, the New World Translation. Okay, and this is the only Bible that they'll use in their congregation. I don't refer to Jehovah's Witnesses as a church because they have made it very clear that they chose to be distinct. Several times when I was studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, we are not like Christendom. That's what they would talk about. We are separate from the world. We don't have anything. Now I find out, man, you were sitting here hanging out with Terry Collins and all this other stuff. So when I pose this question about the future of the white race, can we get this problem fixed? How do we get the problem fixed? You know what I mean? How do we get the fix? Is it biological, or like I said, did you get swept up into the Christian frenzy? Where was your logic? Where was that when you were thinking about this? When this hit your desk, Mayor Parris, what were you thinking? As a lawyer, what were you thinking? Makes me wonder. Anyway, the intuitive message I'm getting right now is that there has been great reviews on my fourth quarter newsletter. And like I said, I'm being very cordial, Major Parris. Let's just hope that we all learn from this, okay? Because I right now, I understand what I was dealing with, okay? And honestly, I can't believe how heartless you could actually be. The intuitive message I'm getting right now is that everyone knows that I am the chosen. I am above all religions. Meaning, why would I sit here and, I don't need to go to your churches. I don't need to be instructed. I don't need people trying to give me lessons. I know. If anything, if I really cared enough, I would be the one giving you lessons. I would be the one in the pulpit giving you instructions. Okay, I think you have, as mankind, I'm not talking to you, Major Parris, specifically, but I'm talking about the congregations and how they let this whole thing get out of control. Okay, as well as them not really having the necessary tools to recognize this sort of social problem. You know what I mean? And part of it is because they don't ask questions, okay? And like I said, I understand. When it comes to all the things that have gone on in the Christian church throughout the generations, they were committed to keeping you ignorant, okay? And so this is something I always knew. And you know how I knew it? It showed in the people. It showed in the people. Why would Jim Culligan? To me, Jim Culligan was no more than probably some grandmaster of the Ku Klux Klan. Ended up marrying my sister Tanya. Had some offspring, right? And that's normal to these people. Okay, they don't think about it. I'm sitting here watching all this weird, crazy stuff going on, being played out in front of my face, and these people thinking, "Oh, she's something wrong with her," and I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." See, because I understand. I have studied people for many, many years. Okay, I've read history. I understand how Nazis work. I understand what COINTELPRO is. I understand what MK Ultra is. I understand Operation. I understand all that stuff. Okay, but they don't read that in schools. You know why? Because the Christian groups keep that stuff out of the school system. You know why? Because those are the tactics that they use. Yes, indeedy. Anyway, so I have won the battle in heaven and on earth. When I pray, and I've noticed that the sun seems brighter. You know what I mean? It's like it seems like the heavens have cleared up. You know, because there's been so much misunderstanding and so much denial. Like I said, if you do not become a whole person in this life, okay, you will take this nonsense into the next life, okay? So all these ridiculous arguments, I'm going to say they were ridiculous, okay? Ridiculous arguments that I've had as CB Braganza and all my other incarnations, okay, was other people's denial, okay? And it's a wonderful thing when people can actually look and admit to themselves, I was wrong. I was wrong, okay? Um, so yes, I am the chosen one. And yes, I'm quite amazed at my story. Yeah, and I am going to address the evil behavior of the people in the city of Lancaster who are responsible for putting my father to death. Okay, and yes, I am going to blame these people 100%. Okay, why? Because it was these self-righteous Christian people acting as if they were entitled to treat my father the way that they did. Okay, and that something was wrong with my father. My father was one of the most loving people you could ever imagine. So, like I said, as we sit here and we try to rebuild society, humanity, I am really seriously interested in knowing the future of the white race. I am so serious. Like, are these people really going to get this stuff out of their mind? Okay, because you have been just nothing but destruction. Okay, so Mayor Parris, I hope that you understand how I'm just directing this conversation to you. I'm very direct. You know why? Because you're dealing with lives. Okay, and every day I go, I deal in a world where I know that I am amazing at my job. Okay, I look at people like Karen Goh, another person who has a position that she doesn't deserve. No offense, Mayor Parris, you don't deserve to be a lawyer or a mayor. Okay, I'm just telling you how it is. All right, I'm being honest. Okay, but I'm sitting here, I have to deal with all kinds of garbage that people like you throw out at me every day. Okay, with a straight face and thinking that you're justified in doing it, and I am quite disgusted by it. Okay, so you have your little connections with Mr. Muma and all these other people. Mr. Muma, I hope Mr. Muma is no longer on this earth. He could very well have just been you guys might be in a group where you guys could easily clone yourself and you guys come right back. I don't know how that works. Okay, but Jim Muma was a very wicked man. He was a very wicked man. I get this intuitive message, something about a spirit being around, hoovering. I do believe that he must have been responsible for my house being under surveillance, okay? As if I am something that does not even deserve to have any sort of privacy or anything, okay? You had absolutely no respect for me, who I was as a person, okay? And so with that being said, I have every right to have my opinion, okay? So when it comes to being qualified to be a mayor, making sure that there's peace within your community, you failed. And also, you failed at being an employment lawyer because obviously, if you're going to think that religion is something that we are supposed to have as a criteria of employment and fight and stand behind it, as well as support Terry Collins in her little crusade, you're not qualified to do that either. Okay, and I have to look at all these incompetent people everywhere I go. Okay, meanwhile, they're sitting here looking at me like, oh, well, you need to take a competency test. And I'm thinking, you should go fuck yourself. Okay. Apparently, I know that this whole group of people, along with Sarah and people such as yourself, Mayor Parris, what other person? Go, whatever. People, they try to get questions and try to dig out about me. Obviously, I am somebody very peaceful. I think you guys even had my neighbors talking about me and stuff like that. I don't make any waves. You know what I mean? The only reason why you took an interest in me, the one and only single reason why you took an interest in me was because of my bloodline and because some lie of Bruce Collins, some exaggeration of what Bruce Collins and Sarah Collins, I'm not in any part of their little love triangle, nor would I be. When I found out Bruce was getting married, I can't tell you, I was cool with it. I didn't sit here and like go in my room and like longing. I didn't get like teary eyed. I didn't sit there and think, how can I get, I was like, okay, okay. You know what I mean? And the problem with it is, and I'm being very, this is very important, okay? Because when I talk about the white race, I'm doing so in a very, casual manner so that you guys understand, okay? But, the problem with it is a lot of it has to do with the arrogance of a white man. Okay, the arrogance of it, people just, oh yeah, absolutely. Maria definitely wants Bruce back. Why? Because they thought they were so high above everything. Oh, she's got to want Bruce back. He's a white man. I don't know why you seem to think that I would bend down and worship the ground a white person walks on. Okay, probably because you get that kind of treatment from people like Karen Go, most likely. But anyway, something about you do acknowledge the fact that no one had the right to mess with my career. Or is that now that you realize that after I told you, or did you actually do some studying? You know what I mean? And you have to understand, I do have a sharp tongue, Mayor Parris, because I've been played with for 12 years by people like you. And don't act like you didn't know what was going on, because in fact you did. The intuitive message I'm getting is because I have a good life. Okay, that is not a reason to attack people and commit terrorism. And yes, I do believe in gently putting people in their place. I absolutely do. The message I'm getting right now is something about people now understand why I like white music. It's, like I said, music is music. To sit here and intrude in my personal life over something so frivolous is just absolutely childish. Um, anyway, some people think if I want company that they would be willing to come over and hang out and talk with me. The other message I'm getting is that this whole issue about me putting that in my newsletter about the future of humanity, it's something, it's food for thought. You know what I mean? It certainly is. You know what I mean? It's like, I knew when I was in high school, and I really started paying attention to what goes on in institutionalized learning versus just learning. You know what I mean? I realized that some of these people were not, really where they needed to be. And this is the reason why they ended up doing what they did. I was just thinking about Teresa. I wasn't good enough to hang out with Teresa because I didn't go to one of those like brick and mortar colleges, and I was blah 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 blah. And Teresa was a people pleaser. She was Filipino, so she was a white people pleaser by default. Okay, she was willing to bend over backwards, like I said, and eat the shit right out of your ass. Okay, that's exactly what she was willing to do. Okay, that's why I do not have any respect for Teresa to this very day. Oh, I'm crass. Maria says what she wants to say, blah, blah, blah. You know why I have to be so brute? You know why I have to? Because I understood that there was a genocide program where people were participating in it with people who had high titles who were participating in it. Okay. And because I do not have any weapons, nor do I need any, nor I feel like I should have any. Okay. So I have to use my mouth. Okay. I have to be able to communicate what's going on. Okay. And if I have to come out sharply, then so be it. Okay. What other message do I have? So it looks like everything is cleared up. I feel as though you guys, hopefully you've learned, this lesson. I'm very grateful to say that I'm at peace with. It's really not. I've never had issues with other religions, but it's always been this Christian thing. Okay, and like I said, Christianity really needs to improve. It really does. Okay, it doesn't need to sit here and be the genocide, cheerleader, the troublemaker, let me attack somebody because they don't believe. If you were just like in the Bible, okay, if you really are living a righteous life, it will be sown. People will see what you're living a righteous life, and people will be inspired to live that life. Okay, I remember saying Tanya, I didn't want anything part of what Tanya had. Okay, I remember babysitting some kids when I was younger. They were from that Christian. The mothers, she had that stepford wife look to her face. The husband was very controlled. I mean, I already knew I wanted nothing to do with that nonsense. Okay, and I knew that men were using the scripture to abuse their wives. They weren't using it in a way where they were going to be loving to their wife. They were like, hey, I'm gonna rule over this bitch. That's exactly what they were thinking. So I could see the mind control. Okay, and I didn't want it. Aside from that, as an angel, why would I want anything to do with humans? Screw them. Okay, all they do is make mistakes. Okay, and they sit there and think that they can exploit me, and they think that they can. I'm tired of humans. I'm tired of them. Okay, they need to understand they have nothing to offer me on any level. Okay. So I don't need your kingdom spouses. Okay. You're just in my way. You are nothing to me. Thank you for understanding. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video. I needed to say that. Okay. I needed to say it. I needed to say it. I needed to release myself, okay? Because I'm tired of people walking around acting like they're more important than what they are. Yeah, they're sitting here like, okay, we're not going to talk to her because we're going to show her a lesson. You know what? Good. I'm glad you're not talking to me. It's important for me to have better quality in my life. And so, if you know what, when I first found out Teresa was two-faced, I remember feeling like, oh, that's sad. That's so painful. Goodbye, bitch. You know why? Because I am so tired of people, being committed to misunderstanding me. I'm tired of people who feel, oh, I'm feeling insecure, so I'm going to sit here. If you thought I was so bad, why in the hell would you sit here and compete against somebody that you think is so lowly? If you thought I had mental problems, what does it make you to try to compete against somebody you think is mentally ill? I'll tell you what it makes you, even more mentally ill. And if you sit here talking about my tricycle, yes, I want my tricycle. It's a practical form of transportation to get my groceries. I got a trike because my son was generous and got me a trike, okay, because you guys kept me out of work and I needed some form of transportation. There's times I take the bus. I also have my little cart and I also got a tricycle that my son was so generous to give me. Okay, so if you want to talk shit, you only have yourself to look for. You only have yourself to look at. Okay. Anyway, the message I'm getting right now is that me and my son are very, very, very grateful. Okay, we are very grateful for what the divine has provided for us. Also, yes, it is all your fault. Every single last one of your fault. Not my responsibility that you guys took this on your own. You wanted to take control over my career. You had no right to sit there and deviate my plan of being a CPA and try to punish me. Okay, it is not your place to punish me. Aside from that, I don't belong to a church to where I would deserve or ask for that sort of reprimand. I don't need your guidance. Okay, I don't need anybody corrupt trying to tell me how to live my life or trying to correct my behavior. Okay, and who would think that? Some mind controlled idiot like Teresa, someone who's desperate to believe that she fits in with all these white people who laugh behind her back. Yes, my trike is fucking way cool. I'm proud of my trike, okay? Hell yeah, you know why? I'm aging backwards. I'm having myself some fun right now. Anyway, I want to say some shout outs really quick. I'm glad that President Trump understands that no one had the right to deviate my plan from being a CPA. I wasn't sitting there trying to be a gold digger to anybody. And don't get me wrong, Mr. President Trump, I see nothing wrong with people who want to settle down and have a family. Okay, I get tired of people painting me out to be some bra burner, and I'm sitting here trying to make a statement because I'm standing against marriage and all these so-called Christian principles that people would love to say that I'm doing. That's a lie. Okay, I already knew I was dealing with a bunch of weirdos. I already knew that. All I really want to do is be protected from weirdos. That's all I want to do. That's all I want to do. Okay. I'm glad my father loves me. Me and my dad are best buddies. Okay. If you can see him right there, he's chilling right there. There he's chilling. Anyway, I just had to say that. You know what I mean? I had to release my frustration because you need to understand I see a world that's supposed to be and how it's supposed to be run. I understand laws and stuff like that. I understand things like etiquette so I have to deal with some of the lowest of the low. Okay? As a black woman, okay? Because they automatically by default want me to sit here and like bow to their white supremacy and I'm like, "Okay, get real." For real. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to white people, okay? But you really took it too far. So like I said, we need to see what the hell is wrong with you people. Okay? And time will tell. Time will tell. Okay? Time will tell. What I do find interesting about this topic is the biblical tie-in. You know what I mean? Because I can see how this sort of mind control is very much in like similar to how they talk about how the devil works. You know what I mean? And it's like, wow, wow, yeah, very, very scary. So anyway, I think I'm done talking. Oh, the message I'm getting is that white people who have been bothering me know that they were out of line. I'm very glad that you learned your lesson. Okay, and don't ever say that I caused it, because I didn't. Okay, and I know some white people, they get like really touchy just because, you know, like for example, if you buy a new car and because you buy that new car, they want to sit here and let you know that they feel as though as you're a black person, you shouldn't have that car. So then they're going to conspire against you with people like Terry Collins to make sure that you get your car taken away. Okay, and they really feel as though they're rightfully able to do that. You did not. Okay, you just proved that you were a, you know, very jealous, competitive person. If you were really somebody who was wanted to improve your life, you would be improving your life instead of attacking innocent people. So I'm not impressed with anything that you do. Okay, so anyway, I think that's it. Wrapping up this video. I'll be back with another video sometime later. Take care. Bye bye.